Hi everyone, good day, this is Dr. Vaughn, and for today, we will be discussing about your epithelium. You've done with the discussion of the different organelles of the cell. So we will now go directly to your tissue proper. So again, discussing about your epithelium. That's why our learning objective for today, learn the different types of your lining epithelium, the location, and as well as its function. Again, it is important for us to identify what are those lining epithelium. But later on, you will also understand that your epithelium is subdivided into two types. We have your lining epithelium and your glandular epithelium. But you will have a separate discussion on your glandular epithelium. And of course, for the lining epithelium, it is important for us to identify the location and as well as its function. But of course, we will not just be talking about your epithelium. We will be also talking about your adipose tissue. And again, your adipose tissue is a special type of tissue also that is not part of your epithelium, but rather it is a connective tissue. But then again, you will have a separate discussion on your connective tissue. Again, let's review. What is a tissue? When we say tissue, we said that these are cells that have a similar or closely related functions that are bound together by an intracellular substance. Again, these are the different types of your tissue. We have your epithelial tissue, you have your nervous tissue, you have your muscle tissue, and you have your connective tissue. Our focus here will be your epithelial tissue, specifically your lining epithelium. Then again, we will discuss some specialized type of your connective tissue, which is your adipose tissue. But again, you will also have a separate discussion on your connective tissue. Okay? So again, let's review the main characteristics of your four basic types of tissue. You have your nervous, your epithelial, your muscle, and your connective. Let's just see your epithelial tissue. When we say epithelial tissue, it is in aggregated polyhedral cells. So later on, I will teach you on how to properly label, identify those epithelial tissue. So you will see that per layer, you have to identify how many layers, you have to identify what will be the shape of the cell. So later on, ituturo ko yan sa inyo. And then your connective tissue, several types of fixed and wandering cells. So in terms of their extracellular matrix, you will see that your epithelial tissue have a small amount of this matrix, but abundant in your connective tissue. So your epithelial tissue main function, lining of the surface or body cavities and glandular secretion, meaning to say they are located external or out the outermost region of the layer cake. These are part of your lining of surface or body cavities. And your connective tissue, on the other hand, they support and for protection of tissues and organs. How about the two other tissues? You have your nervous tissue, elongated cells with extremely fine processes, and of course, since this is a nervous tissue, it is important for the transmission of your nerve impulses. While your muscle, elongated contractile cells, and of course, this is for strong contraction. So muscle, therefore, for strong contraction and body movements. Okay? Again, focus natin for today, epithelial and some parts of your connective tissue, specifically your adipose tissue. Okay? But before we go directly to your epithelium, let's first have an idea of what is an epithelium. As I said, epithelium covers the external surfaces of the body and it consists of sheets of cells. So later on, you will see how many layers of epithelium. Is there only one layer, two layer, or many layers of your epithelium? And again, covers the external surfaces and it lines the internal cavities as well as your organs. And again, we have your glands and their ducts. It also covers the glands and in their ducts. Epithelium is not supplied by the blood vessels and therefore non-vascular. So therefore, they are avascular. Now my question is, saan naman kukuha ng nutrients ang ating epithelium? Since remember, they are avascular, so there is no direct supply of your nutrients. So saan kukuha ng nutrients ang ating epithelium? And the answer is, that's gonna be in your connective tissue. Later on, you will learn that your epithelium is separated to the connective tissue by a membrane of what we term as your basement membrane. Again, your basement membrane separates your epithelium from your connective tissue. So you will have a better picture later on, okay? There are two functional types of your epithelium. You have your lining epithelium and your glandular epithelium. But for today's lecture, we will just focus on your lining epithelium, okay? In terms of your location, where can we see or locate your epithelium? You see, it can be found in your esophagus. You can have a stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. You can locate that in your trachea, which is bounded by your pseudostratified epithelium. You can see that in your small intestine, which could be bounded by a simple, it could be a simple columnar. You can have your stomach, could also be a simple columnar, okay? But again, later on, I will teach you on how we could properly label this epithelium, okay? So therefore, we can see that your epithelium is really bounded or is really located in various parts of the body. So again, it's gonna be very overwhelming at this point or at your level right now, because there will be different body organs will have different epithelium. But do not worry, because you will still encounter this different lining epithelium as you go to the different organ system. When you discuss about your respiratory system, you discuss about your digestive system, you will still encounter this different epithelium. So the focus of my discussion will just be an overview of the different lining epithelium of the body. But somehow right now, I want you to at least understand it right now, and somehow siguro you can familiarize already the different types of epithelium, okay? Sige. Now let's talk about the function. The first function is the transcellular transport. So again, we were talking about the transport of molecules from one epithelial surface to another that occurs your various processes. So again, transport of molecules, okay? Next, absorption occurs via endocytosis and your pinocytosis. Later on, you will also see that some of this epithelium will have a specialized surface modification. And this different surface modification is very essential for the absorption of the different nutrients needed by the body. So you will learn that later also. And also for the secretion, it is essential for the secretion of your hormones, your mucus via exocytosis. Again, for absorption, endocytosis, pinocytosis. For the secretion, it's going to be via exocytosis. Exo means outside. Endo going inside. Okay? And again, for protection, remember that they are found in the lining of your different organs. So therefore, it is needed as for protection purposes. Protection from abrasion, injury, and so remember, your skin is also bounded by your lining epithelium. So therefore, it will provide protection against toxic, against what you call this one, any injury for your skin. It could be toxins, it could be UV radiation, it could be any physical trauma to the skin. So again, the general function of your epithelium: transport, absorption, secretion, and protection. Okay? Just remember these clue terms. Okay? Now, we will be talking about your cell polarity. Okay? When I say cell polarity, you are referring to the borders of your epithelial cell. So let's first identify this structure. Okay, this part here is now the lining epithelium. This is now the epithelium tissue proper. Okay, when I say tissue, group of cells. So again, these are your epithelial cells. So these are already group of epithelial cells. So therefore, this part here is your epithelium. This part here is now your glandular epithelium. These are glands, and these will secrete. There are one important function of your epithelium is secretion, and that's the basic function of your glandular epithelium. But again, our focused discussion right now will just be under your epithelium or your epithelial lining. And this portion here right now is what we term as your connective tissue. So at this level, at this part here, this is now your glandular epithelium. Okay? And then this portion here is now your basement membrane. Just remember, epithelial tissue is separated by your connective tissue by your basement membrane. Okay? This is now, the red portion here is now what we term as your basement membrane. Again, when we talk about cell polarity, we are talking about by the boundaries of your different epithelial cell. We have your apical domain. So again, this is now your apical domain. This is the apical surface of your epithelial tissue. How about the lateral domain? Of course, this is side here, this side here, side. This is now your lateral domain. And of course, this is now your basal domain. Just remember your basement membrane. So again, at least you are now familiar with the cell polarity. Again, your epithelium exhibit distinct polarity. Okay, again, the first, the free or the apical domain is always directed toward the exterior surface of the lumen. Okay, exterior surface of the lumen. So imagine, this is a tube. So we're talking about a blood vessel. So this is a tube. When you cut the tube at the center, that's what we term as a cross section. And at the middle of that portion, you can see now the lumen. The lumen is where your blood will pass. So this area here now, for example, if this is a blood vessel, so this area here right now refers to as the lumen, where the blood will pass through. So this is the lumen. Imagine, for example, this is just a lumen. So therefore, we see that your apical domain always directed to the lumen. So if where you can locate the lumen, that's the apical domain. Just remember, this is the apical domain. The lateral domain, on the other hand, communicates with the adjacent cell. So again, this is one epithelial cell. This is another epithelial cell. So therefore, this is now your lateral domain, which will your adjacent cell will communicate. And later on, we will discuss the different specialized attachment areas. Okay? And lastly, again, your basement or your basal domain. Your basal domain, on the other hand, rests on the basal lamina, anchoring the cell or underlying the connective tissue. So again, basically, we are talking about the basement membrane, okay? We are talking about the basement membrane underlying the connective tissue. So again, what separates now your connective tissue to your epithelial tissue? That's gonna be your basement membrane, and that refers already to your basal domain. Again, review. Apical domain directed to your lumen. This is now your lateral domain, the domain that will communicate to your different epithelial tissue. And lastly, your basal domain that is that separates now your epithelial tissue to your connective tissue. Okay? Please remember this cell polarity. Okay? Okay, right now, we will go directly to the specifics of your different polarity. So first, we just discussed about your basal domain, referring to your basement membrane. Okay? Now, all epithelial cells is in contact with subjacent connective tissue. Again, all epithelial cell, these epithelial cells is in contact with a subjacent connective tissue and have their basal surfaces a specialized felt-like sheet of your extramaterial surface referred to as your basement membrane. This red portion here, that's referring to your basement membrane. Okay? Sige. The first picture here is an extracellular membrane red. Itong red dito, that refers now to your basement membrane. Of course, it is also, your glandular epithelium has also a basement membrane that will separate the glandular epithelium to your connective tissue. Okay, this portion here, this is your blood vessel. Take note, this is a blood vessel. Remember, your epithelium is avascular. It does not have any it does not have any blood supply. Now, the question is, where does this tissue gets its nutrient? No, of course, the answer here is in the connective tissue, because your connective tissue contains now your blood vessel. This is a blood vessel. And remember, this blood vessel is also lined by an epithelium. And later on, we will discuss also that. Your epithelium. And remember, it is also bounded by your basement membrane. Okay? Please remember that. So therefore, your lining epithelium will get its nutrients from the connective tissue, because your connective tissue contains now your blood vessel. Okay? Sige. Now, this second picture here. The second picture here is the, as what you can see, your basement membrane is subdivided into different layers. Okay? Please remember this one. Your basement membrane, the red portion here, this portion here is subdivided into different layers. Basement membrane, layers, what are those layers? Basal lamina and your reticular lamina. Okay? Basal lamina and your reticular lamina. What are those layers of your basal lamina? You have your lamina lucida, this portion here, and you have your lamina densa, this portion here. And lastly, you have your reticular lamina. Again, what are the two layers of your basement membrane? Basal lamina, reticular lamina. And your basal lamina is further subdivided into lamina lucida and lamina densa. Sometimes the student gets confused when I say basal lamina. They think that that's synonymous to basement membrane. Of course, that is different, because again, your basal lamina is just a layer of your basement membrane. But at your level right now, it's just very important that you can identify what is a basement membrane and where you can locate your basement membrane. Again, this is your basement membrane. It separates your epithelium to your connective tissue. Okay? Sige. Again, we will now discuss your lateral domain. We've done discussing your basal basal domain. Right now, we will be discussing about your lateral domain. In your lateral domain, you can see different intracellular adhesion and different junctions. When I say intracellular adhesions, we are referring to the different structures that is located in your lateral aspect of your epithelial cells. So you can see several membrane-associated structures. And what will be the function of this lateral domain? Of course, this is essential for intracellular adhesion and communication. So therefore, this epithelial cell will communicate to this epithelial cell by your intracellular adhesion and junction. Please remember that. Again, they can communicate. One epithelial cell will communicate to another epithelial cell by your intercellular adhesion. Some are present in other tissues, but all are particularly numerous and prominent to your epithelial cell. So again, we will discuss about your tight junction, your adherence junction, your desmosome, your gump junction, your hemidesmosome. Okay? Again, these are located in your lateral domain. And what is the function of this one? Again, adhesion and communication. That's the general function of these intercellular adhesion and junctions. Okay? Sige. First, we will be talking about your tight junction. Just an overview. Again, this is a epithelial cell. This is now your epithelial cell. This is another epithelial cell. Okay? One epithelial cell, another epithelial cell. And then, of course, this is the apical domain, the lateral domain, and the basal domain. So remember, basal domain, it contains your basement membrane. And that basement membrane, it's subdivided into different layers. And again, the first layer is your basal lamina, and you also have your reticular lamina. Now, we will just focus first in your lateral domain. Again, in lateral domain, you can find your intercellular adhesion. And again, we have the different intercellular adhesion or junctions. First, we have your tight junction. Just remember this part here, tight junction. We have your adhering junctions, we have your desmosomes, we have your gump junctions, and we have your hemidesmosome. Okay? We will be discussing these different adhesion and junctions one by one. We will see what's the function of these different junctions. Okay? So first, we will be talking about your tight junction. When I say tight junction, that refers to your zona occludens. They are just similar. Zona occludens or your tight junctions. And please take note, what will be the major transmembrane protein? That's gonna be occludens, claudin, and your ZO protein. Again, this portion here is your tight junction. The major transmembrane protein, occludens, and claudins. Just remember occludens and claudins, okay? What will be the cytoskeletal components? Remember, actin filaments. Of course, you have done discussing the cytoskeleton. Of course, you have your actin, myosin, so you're familiar with your actin filaments. Now, the question is, what's the function of your what's the function of this tight junction? Please take note that the major function of this tight junction is to seal the adjacent cell to one another. So meaning to say, it's a sealant. It's a sealant of one adjacent cell to another adjacent cell. So therefore, it will control the passage of your molecules here. Again, it will control the passage of your molecules here between them. And again, it will separate your apical region and to your basolateral membrane domain. Again ha, sige, para hindi tayo ma-confuse. What's the function of this one? It will seal the one adjacent tissue. Again, this is one epithelial cell and this is another epithelial cell. Therefore, it will just basically seal. And then, it will separate also your, remember, this is the apical domain, this is the lateral domain, and the basal domain. So therefore, your tight junction will separate now your apical domain and your basolateral domain. Okay? Please remember that. Again, the seal here is brought about by the interaction of your different major transmembrane protein, your claudin and your occludens. So therefore, what's the reason why meron tayong sealing effect dito? It's because of this protein, yung occluden and your claudin. So again, just remember, it's just basically to separate your apical to your basolateral domain. Okay? Please remember that. Medical significance, of course, it will now, at your level right now, I would rather go directly to the things that is needed at your level right now. Kasi kung medical significance, you might get confused already because these are already pathological. At your level, siguro, nasa mga normal tissue muna tayo, histology. But later on, when you reach into your histopathology, that's a time that you might encounter different diseases na. Okay? But right now, at your level, hindi pa man masyadong kailangan itong medical significance. But of course, you can see that your occludens here, if meron kang defect sa occludens dito. So therefore, kung may defect sa occludens dito, what will happen? Number one, medical importance, it will compromise the fetal blood-brain barrier leading to several neurologic disorders. So it's very general lang muna, no? Again, hindi lang muna tayo magfo-focus sa mga medical significance because you might get confused and it's too technical at your level right now. Siguro, more of the normal histology lang muna tayo. Okay? Sige. So next, we will be talking about your adherent junction. Adherent junction, or what we term as your zonula adherence. Again, they are just similar. Adherent junction and your zonula adherence. Nandito yung ating adherent junctions. And what will be the major transmembrane protein? You have your E-cadherent catenin complexes. Okay? What will be your cytoskeletal components? Similar kanina sa ating tight junction, you have your actin filaments. What will be the function now of your adhering junctions? Of course, this adhering junction will provide points linking the cytoskeleton of adjacent cell. Again, it will link now the cytoskeleton of your adjacent cell. This is one cell, another cell. It will connects or it will link the cytoskeleton. And again, what's the purpose of linking the cytoskeleton? it strengthens and stabilizes nearby tight junction. So again, stabilize niya pala itong tight junctions located in this portion. That's again the function of your adhering junction. Kaya nga tinawag na adhering junction. Supports and stabilizes this tight junction. Okay? Again, the cell adhesion here is mediated by your cadherin. Okay, just remember, what mediates the adhesion? It's gonna be your cadherins. And again, transmembrane glycoproteins of each cell will interact with the presence of your calcium. So again, you have E-cadherin in this portion here. Now, the question is, what's the purpose of that E-cadherin? Basically, it will mediate the interaction of your different epithelial tissue. And this is mediated by, again, remember, calcium. When you hear the word calcium or cadherin, just remember calcium, okay? Because your calcium now, hindi ito gagana. Again, your cadherin will not function as a molecule that is needed by this adhering junction if without the presence of your calcium. So please remember that, okay? Again, just remember, it will provide or strengthen now the function of your tight junction. That's basically the function of your adhering junctions. Next, we have your desmosome. Your desmosome, or what we term as your macula adherens. This part here, this is now your desmosome or your macula adherens. What will be the major transmembrane? Of course, similar. We have your cadherin family. You have your desmogleins and your desmocholine. Okay? What will be the cytoskeletal components? Of course, this part here is composed of intermediate filaments or your keratin. Now, what's the function of your desmosome? So again, the function of your desmosome, it will provide now points of strong intermediate filament coupling between adjacent cells. So strengthening the tissue. Almost similar function with your adhering function. It will also strengthen your tissue. Okay? Now, your desmosome are this shape. Tingnan natin. How can you differentiate na your desmosome? Again, what you can see here, they looks like a disc-shaped structures at the surface of one cell that are matched with identical structures of the adjacent cell surface. Again, you have one, this shape here from one epithelial here, and another, this shape here to another epithelial here. Kumbaga, match sila. So, nagmamatch sila. That's gonna be your desmosome. Again, your desmosome contains larger membrane family called your desmogleins and your desmocholine. Okay? Next, we have your hemidesmosome. Yung hemidesmosome natin, oy, familiar doc, yung desmosome na diniscuss natin. So, hemidesmosome ha, familiar, diba? There are similar names, desmosomes, and we have another one, your hemidesmosome. So, take note. Major transmembrane link protein will be your will be your integrin. What will be our cytoskeletal components? That's gonna be your intermediate filament. What will be the major function? Ano kayang function nitong hemidesmosome? It will anchors now your cytoskeleton to your basal lamina. Remember, your basal lamina is in this portion. It's a basement membrane. So therefore, your hemidesmosome is not located on the lateral domain, but rather it is located at the basement or basal domain. So please don't confuse ha. Again, your hemidesmosome is located in the basal domain or basically in your basal lamina. And what's the function of this hemidesmosome? Again, it will anchors now your cytoskeleton to the basal lamina. So please don't confuse kung hala, 'di ba sabi ni Doc Von, all of your intercellular adhesion are located in the lateral domain. Of course, we have an exemption to that. That's gonna be your hemidesmosome. Okay? Why is it that we term this as hemidesmosome? Hemi because how many? We are referring only to the one disc. Remember, we call this desmosome because of the presence of one disc here, another disc here of the different epithelial tissue, and they are matched. Kaya nagiging desmosome. But here, hemi means half, just half portion of your desmosome. Kaya tinatawag natin na hemidesmosome. Okay? And the domain that we'll be discussing is your gap junction. You have your nexus, gap junction or your nexus. This portion here is your gap junction or your nexus. What will be our major transmembrane link protein? That's gonna be your connexin, okay? Cytoskeletal component, none. What will be the major function? Your gap junction here will allow direct transfer of your small molecules and ions from one cell to another. Again, it is basically to transfer now your small molecules here from one cell to another cell. And of course, ions from one cell to another. So basically, exchange of the different molecules. So remember that. That's gonna be your gap junctions. Again, when two cells attach, your connexins in the adjacent cell membranes move laterally and align, and they form now of what we term as your connexons. Again, please remember this one. When your connexins, one connexin here, another connexin here from one cell, when they attach or align, they will form now what we term as your connexons. Okay? Please remember that. Okay, we're done with the discussion of your, again, we've done with the discussion of your basement membrane. We've done the discussion of your lateral domain. Now, we will focus our discussion here in the apical domain. Okay? Apical domain na tayo. Yung apical domain naman natin, these are now they have a special surface modification. Meaning to say, some epithelial cells will have this special surface modification. You can have cilia, you can have microvilli, you can have your stereocilia. Okay? First, cilia. When I say cilia, these are motile structures found on the certain cells in the uterine tubes, uterus, efferent ducts in the testis, and in your respiratory system. When I say uterine tube, where can you locate that? Uterine tube. Saan mo yun malolocate? Please answer me. No, again, even if that this is just asynchronous, you're just watching my lecture video, I want you to still participate. You try to participate. No, kahit hindi walang nakikinig sa'yo, try to participate. This is somehow of one way of testing yourself whether you have kanang at least an idea ba na tamang sinagot ko, mali pa lang sinagot ko. No, you try to participate, at least somehow an assessment to yourself. Okay? So again, I asked you, what is uterine tube? Saan natin yung matatagpuan? Is it in the urinary system or reproductive system? Of course, uterine tube refers now to your reproductive system. Very good. Reproductive, because uterine tube is just synonymous to, ano kaya tingin nyo? Synonymous to your fallopian tube. Now, why is it that the epithelial tissue of your uterine tubes contains cilia? Again, not all epithelial cells will have cilia. Not all will have microvilli. Not all will have stereocilia. Cilia, because, why? Cilia, because remember, these are highly motile, okay? Your fallopian tube connects the ovary and your uterus. So therefore, the cilia of your uterine tube is essential to transfer your ovaries towards your uterus. Remember, cilia are like finger-like structures. So parang imove niya yung ovary towards our uterus. So therefore, just remember, cilia are motile structures. Okay? Now, let's proceed about your microvilli. Your microvilli are small, non-motile in comparison to your cilia, which is motile. Take note, microvilli are non-motile projections that cover the surfaces of all absorbative cells. Clue word natin dito, absorbative cells. In the small intestine and in your proximal convoluted tubules in the kidney. Oh, you might be confused. Oh, Doc Von, what's that proximal convoluted tubules? Kidney na tayo, Doc Von. Do not worry. Again, you will still encounter this different lining epithelium or these terminologies when you reach the different organ system. At least right now, our focus only is the epithelial lining. Okay? Don't be confused. What's that? PCT? What's that? Etc. Small intestine. Do not be confused. Okay? At your level right now, at least you are just familiar. You are familiar with this different special surface modification, okay? Huwag kayong ma-overwhelm masyado, okay? Sige, again, microvilli, non-motile. Sige, yan lang muna. Alam ko, microvilli, sabi ni Doc Von, non-motile yan in comparison to your cilia, which is motile, okay? So therefore, cilia is highly, there's a movement in your cilia. Okay, microvilli, it will now cover the surfaces of the absorptive cells in your small intestine. So remember, your small intestine, what's the function of your small intestine? What's the function of your small intestine? Of course, for your digestion. Where does your final digestion took place? It's in your small intestine. So therefore, absorption. Kailangan natin ng small intestine because it is necessary for the absorption of nutrients. Anong epithelium, anong special surface modification meron sa ating small intestine? Meron siyang microvilli. Because your microvilli, the main function of your microvilli is basically for absorption. So, i-absorb natin ang ating nutrients through the use of your microvilli. So, please take note of that. Next, we have your stereocilia. These are long. So, in comparison to microvilli, small. Pareha silang non-motile. Please take note. Clue natin, once motile, automatically cilia. Okay? Once non-motile, it could either be microvilli and stereocilia. Saan sila magkakaiba? In terms of their length. Your microvilli is small, your stereocilia is long. Your stereocilia, they are branch microvilli. Of course, kasi nga mahaba sila, they are just similar with your microvilli. But then again, they are longer. And they are branch microvilli that line the cell surfaces of your epididymis and your vas deferens. Again, please take note, stereocilia. Remember, epididymis and your vas deferens. This is part of the what reproductive? Male or female reproductive? Of course, male reproductive system. Okay? Again, take note, the function of your microvilli and your stereocilia is basically for absorption. Your cilia is basically for movement. Okay? Now, again, another example sa ating cilia. Ito lang tatandaan nyo. Cilia, respiratory system. Some parts of your respiratory system will contain cilia. Now, my question is, what's the purpose of your cilia in your respiratory system? Bakit kailangan natin mayroong cilia? Of course, remember, when you inhale, you can inhale possible foreign bodies or foreign toxic bodies. So therefore, your cilia will be essential to transfer or parang alisin. I-move out niya yung foreign body outside the body. So, i-move niya, gagalaw yung cilia. Again, remember, your cilia are highly motile. So therefore, it will move those toxic or foreign bodies outside the body. Okay? That's the purpose of your cilia in your respiratory system. Again, cilia, think of your uterine tube. Think of your respiratory system. Microvilli, think of your small intestine for absorption. Stereocilia, think of your epididymis and your vas deferens. Again, these are the things na kailangan nyo lang at least malaman. Okay? Ito yun yung pinaka-importante. Okay? Sige, tingnan natin. Hala, ano na to, Doc Von? My God, confusing na po. Sige, tingnan natin. Zoom in ko muna ha. Tingnan natin. Ayan, zoom in natin. OMG, ano na yan, Doc Von? I cannot identify. Color pink na lang lahat. Sige, identify natin muna. Again, identify natin yung mga domains. This portion here is now your epithelial tissue. Again, sa ilalim ng epithelial tissue, ano nga yung type of tissue? This portion here is now your connective tissue. Very good. This is now your connective tissue. What separates your connective tissue to your epithelial tissue? This portion here, that's gonna be your basement membrane. Very good. Basement membrane, epithelial tissue, this portion here is your connective tissue. Question, let's identify the domain. This portion here now is the lumen. So therefore, this portion is the apical surface. Remember, this is the basement membrane. This is now the basal domain. This portion here, again, this is one epithelial tissue. another epithelial cell, one epithelial cell, another epithelial cell. What separates one epithelial cell to another epithelial cell is by your basal domain, your lateral domain. So therefore, this portion here is now your lateral domain, lateral domain, lateral domain. This portion here is your apical domain. This portion here is your basal domain. No? At least na-imagine nyo na sa dinidiscuss natin kanina by using a true or a realistic tissue. Okay? Sige. Now, right now, talk muna natin yung special surface modification. This is actually the epithelial lining of your respiratory system, specifically your respiratory tract. Okay? So again, respiratory system. Remember, what is the special surface modification? When I say respiratory system, anong lumalabas agad-agad na special surface modification? Remember, your cilia. This is now your cilia. Again, your cilia mediated transport of your particles that is trapped in your mucus out of the air passage. Nilalabas niya. Tinatrap niya yung mga particles, no? And these particles is toxic to our respiratory system. So, kailangan ipalabas. That's the function of your cilia. Okay? Very good. Now, tingnan naman natin to. This is your small intestine. Identify natin to. This is now your epithelial tissue. This is now your basement membrane. And this is portion here is your connective tissue. Very good. Your small intestine, again, remember what will be the special surface modification of our small intestine? Please take note, your microvilli. What's the purpose of your microvilli? Remember, this microvilli is essential for absorption of your nutrients. Very good, no? Ganun tayo. Sa mga simple lang tayo. Simplified lang natin ang ating discussion. Okay? Sige. Again, this portion here, what is this? This is actually your epididymis. Epididymis, anong lumalabas sa ating, anong special surface modification? Automatically, stereocilia. Tingnan nyo yung stereocilia natin dito. Mas mahahaba sila, right? Mas mahahaba. And there are long, non-motile branch microvilli. Similar lang ito sa ating microvilli. Compare natin ha. Sige, compare natin sila. Ayan. Sabi natin kanina, your cilia are highly motile. Your microvilli and your stereocilia are non-motile. Okay? Now, how can we differentiate your microvilli and your stereocilia since both of them are non-motile? Of course, your microvilli, the length of their structure, they are very small, but your stereocilia are highly branched. Tingnan nyo, there is branching. Tingnan nyo, nagdidikit-dikit sila. Branching sila, and they are longer compared to your microvilli. Remember, your stereocilia is a branch microvilli. That's why your microvilli and your stereocilia will function as for absorption. Okay? Your cilia naman natin are highly motile. Okay? Please remember that. That's just a summary of what we discussed a while ago. Okay? Okay, now let's proceed to the different lining epithelium. No, introduction pa lang tayo. Okay, tapos na tayo sa introduction. Now let's proceed now to our proper discussion of your lining epithelium. Okay, sige. Your lining epithelium can be classified according to the number of cell layers and the morphology or structure. Again, depending on the cell layers and the morphology of the structure. First, this is the cell layer. This is the morphology. Unahin muna natin ang cell layer. Simple, stratified, or pseudo-stratified. Simple, anong napapansin nyo? This is example of a simple squamous, simple cuboidal, simple columnar. No? Simple squamous. Simple, simple, simple. How many layers ang nakikita ninyo? Simple, meaning to say, there is only one layer. One layer, one layer, one layer. Very good. Stratified. When I say stratified, how many layers ang nakikita natin? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sobrang daming layer. You can have 2 or more layers. That's stratified. Again, simple, 1 layer. Pag more than 1, 2 or more, that's stratified. Pseudo-stratified, this part here, tingnan natin. Pseudo-stratified. This is a pseudo-stratified. How many layers ba ang nakikita nyo? Ilang layer? 1, 2, many? Take note, there is only 1 layer. It becomes pseudo because, remember, stratified, many layers. Pseudo means false. Pseudo, right? Means false. So, false stratified. Kumbaga, nagmumukha siyang maraming layers, pero in reality, isang layer lang yan. Hala, Doc Von, no? Kasi nga, as what you can see, aligned ang nucleus. Aligned ang nucleus. Aligned ang nucleus. So, therefore, we could think that isang layer lang siya. But what you can see here, hindi aligned ang mga nucleus. So, you might get confused. Most probably, stratified ito, but it's not. This is just a pseudo-stratified. This is just 1 layer. Paano ko nalaman na 1 layer lang? Please take note of the basement membrane. Tingnan nyo, this is the basement membrane. We call that as pseudo-stratified when the membrane, when all your epithelial tissue is attached to your epithelial membrane. Tingnan nyo, this is one epithelial tissue. Naka-attach pa siya sa basement membrane dito? Yes, tingnan nyo, naka-attach siya. This one here, isang cell dito, maliit na cell. This epithelial cell, naka-attach ba siya sa ating basement membrane? Naka-attach. This cell here, naka-attach ba siya sa basement membrane? Of course, naka-attach siya, naka-connect siya. When I say attach, naka-connect ang cell sa basement membrane. Itong maliit na to, of course, naka-attach. So, all of this epithelial tissue is attached to your basement membrane, basement surface. Now, question, are all of these epithelial cell attached to your apical surface or apical membrane? Lahat ba dito naka-attach sa apical surface or apical membrane? Tingnan natin. This cell, naka-attach ba siya? Naka-abot ba siya sa apical surface? Yes, naka-attach. Itong cell na to, malaki, naka-attach siya. Of course, kitang-kita na nandito na siya. Naka-attach siya. Now, question. Itong maliit na to, itong mga maliit na nasa ilalim, naka-abot ba siya sa apical surface? Hindi. Tingnan nyo, hindi siya naka-attach sa ating apical membrane, apical surface. So therefore, we define pseudo-stratified. It is only 1 layer because all epithelial cell is attached to the basement membrane, but not all epithelial cells is being attached to your apical surface. That makes it pseudo-stratified because it looks like that there are many cells because your nucleus are not actually aligned, no? Magmumukha siyang pseudo-stratified kasi nga yung nucleus natin dito are not actually aligned. Okay? Sige, very good. Pseudo-stratified, how many layers? 1 layer. Same lamang sa ating simple, kaya lang hindi lahat ng cell natin dito is nakaabot sa apical surface, pero lahat naka-attach sa basement membrane. Okay? Very good. Now, how about the morphology? Compare natin ang morphology sa squamous, sa simple, and sa columnar. Squamous, what you can see, these are flat cells. Okay? Ano ba itong mga parang dark spot here? That's actually your nucleus. These are one cell, another cell, another cell. And based on morphology, squamous, these are flat cell. How about this one? Simple cuboidal. From the name itself, cube-like, no? So therefore, parang cube-like, therefore simple cuboidal. Columnar. How about columnar? Columnar, therefore, pahaba. Diba? Napapansin nyo, ang cells are pahaba. This is what we term as your simple columnar. Now, another clue. Remember, pseudo-stratified. Ano itong pseudo-stratified in terms of their morphology? Automatically, pseudo-stratified is a columnar. Okay? Wala tayong pseudo-stratified na squamous. Wala tayong pseudo-stratified na cuboidal. Automatically, pseudo-stratified is columnar. Please remember that, ha? Wala tayong pseudostratified na cuboidal, wala tayong pseudostratified na squamous. When I say pseudostratified, automatically that is columnar. Tingnan nyo naman, pahaba ang cell. Not cuboidal, not flat cells. Okay? Please remember that. Again, we've done discussing on how to classify the cell. Simple, stratified, pseudostratified, then morphology, squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. Ang mangyayari naman ito is i-combine na natin sila. You can have a simple squamous epithelium, you can have a simple squamous cuboidal or columnar. You can have a stratified squamous, stratified cuboidal, or you can have pseudo-stratified. Again, pag pseudo-stratified, automatically columnar na yan sila. So, our discussion next will focus on the different types of lining epithelium. Sa different lining epithelium na natin. So, i-discuss natin pa isa-isa. First, simple squamous, simple columnar, simple cuboidal. Okay? Isa-isahin natin. Our first discussion will focus on the simple squamous epithelium. Okay? Your simple squamous epithelium, what will be the location? Saan natin matatagpuan ng simple squamous epithelium? We can see that in the lining of your blood vessel, lining of your peritoneum, and in your pleura. Yung peritoneum natin, nasa abdominal area. Yung pleura natin sa ating respiratory system. So when I say endothelium, automatically, what is the lining epithelium of your endothelium? You can answer that as simple squamous. Again, simple squamous, that's just similar to your endothelium, but specific to your blood vessel. When I say, what's the lining epithelium of your blood vessel? You can answer simple squamous or endothelium, okay? When I say peritoneum and pleura, what's the lining of your peritoneum and your pleura? That's gonna be your mesothelium or simple squamous. Again, endothelium and mesothelium is synonymous to simple squamous. Kaya lang, ang endothelium is specific to blood vessel, mesothelium specific to peritoneum and to your pleura. Okay, sige, let's identify. This is a blood vessel. Ang blood vessel natin, sige, imagine nyo, blood vessel. Remember, it is a tube, right? Daan ang ating dugo. Correct? Blood vessel. Ika-cut nyo yung blood vessel sa gitna. Cut. You get a cross section of your blood vessel. Ito na yung blood vessel natin. So therefore, yung nasa gitna is the lumen. Yung lumen is where your blood dadaan. Of course, diba? Dito yung dadaan ang ating blood, ang ating dugo. So therefore, this portion here now will be the apical surface, correct? This is now the apical surface. Now, let's identify. Simple squamous because how many layers of cell? Isang layer lang, correct? And, napapansin nyo, what is the shape or morphology of the cell? You can see it's flat, right? Flat lamang siya. Flat lamang, flat lamang. So therefore, this is now your simple squamous epithelium. So that's why when I ask to you, what is the lining epithelium of your blood vessel? You can answer simple squamous epithelium. Of course, when I ask for a lining epithelium, that includes the morphology, that includes the layer. Unahin mo na yung layer, followed by the morphology. So, Doc Von, the lining epithelium of your blood vessel is simple squamous. Okay? Simple squamous. Okay? Again, please take note. Simple squamous epithelium covers the external surfaces of your digestive organs, lungs, and heart, and what we term as your mesothelium. Simple squamous epithelium that lines the lumina of your heart chambers and all blood and your lymphatic vessels, that's what we term as your endothelium. Okay? Sige. Now, how about simple cuboidal? Simple cuboidal. Simple, one layer. Cuboidal, cube-like structure. Okay, location. Lining of the distal tubule in your kidney and ducts and in some glands and surface of your ovary. Tingnan natin ha. This is one layer. Isang layer, another layer. Nagmumukhang dalawang layer kasi nga parang nagkadikit-dikit sila. Nagmumukhang dalawa. Pero of course, this is one separate layer. This is one separate layer. So again, tingnan nyo. Ano ba itong parang mga bilog-bilog dito? What is that structure? What's that structure? That is now your nucleus. Again that's your nucleus. And again, they are bounded by a cube-like structure. So that is now your simple cuboidal. Isang layer lang sila. Isang layer, isang layer, isang layer. So therefore, simple cuboidal. Again, simple cuboidal epithelium that lines your small excretory ducts of your different organs. Okay? Please take note of this one. Please take note of the location and the structure. Okay? This is now your simple cuboidal. How about your simple columnar? Simple columnar, think of your intestine. Pag sinabi kong small intestine, ano nga yung special surface modification? Remember, microvilli. Remember microvilli. Automatically, just remember microvilli. Okay? Microvilli. Again, simple columnar, matatagpuan sa intestine, sa stomach, and excretory ducts in some glands. Again, so this is the lumen of your small intestine. Remember, yung small intestine natin, 'di ba? Dapat para din siyang tube. Ika-cut natin sa gitna, you get now the cross section. But of course, 'di ba dapat Doc Von, bakit hindi siya buong bilog? Remember, you just get a portion of that area. So kumuha ka lang ng portion diyan, and then ito na yung ating luminal area. Okay? So itong area na dito, this portion here is the lumen. Is this the epithelial lining? Ito yung epithelial lining. So, ito siya dito sa main structure. This is the epithelial lining. Very good. Okay? This is the lumen, the epithelial lining. Yung nasa gitna, that's your villi. Okay? You will learn more that when you reach your digestive system. What's the purpose of this villi? It increases the surface area for absorption. Okay? So, this is the villi. This is the epithelial lining. Yung specialized surface modification natin dito sa pinakadulo, that's gonna be your microvilli. Ito yung microvilli, okay? Microvilli. This portion here is your microvilli. What's the purpose of your microvilli? Your microvilli is simply for absorption. Important for the absorption of your nutrients. So again, tingnan natin. Identify. Ilang layers kaya ang nakikita natin? Dalawa? Isa? Or marami? You can see, ang nucleus nila, aligned lang. So therefore, most probably, there's only one layer. Kaya nga, tinawag natin na simple. One layer of a columnar cells. Tingnan nyo, pahaba yung ating cells. So therefore, simple columnar epithelium. So when I ask you, what is the lining epithelium of your small intestine? That's gonna be your simple columnar epithelium. So, sasabihin nyo sapat sa akin. When I ask, what's the lining epithelium of your small intestine, Doc Von? The lining epithelium of your small intestine, your stomach, will be simple columnar epithelium. That should be your answer. Okay? Very good. Now, pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Again, pwede nang walang columnar kasi automatically, when I say pseudostratified, columnar naman talaga yan. Wala namang pseudostratified cuboidal or squamous. Automatically, columnar na siya. Okay? Saan natin matatagpuan ang pseudostratified columnar epithelium or your pseudostratified epithelium? Location, lining of the trachea, primary bronchi, nasal cavity, and in your excretory ducts in your parotid gland. Sinabi mo, Doc Von, trachea, primary bronchi. Naiisip nyo ba yung special surface modification pag nasa respiratory system? Remember your? Very good. Meron tayong presence ng cilia. Very good. This is now your cilia. Very good. That's your cilia. No? At least nai-imagine niyo yung mga sinasabi ko. That is now your cilia. Pseudostratified. Bakit nga natin tinawag itong pseudostratified? Pseudostratified because there is only one layer, but take note that all of the cells are attached to the basement membrane, but some of the cells is not able to attach to the apical surface or your surface membrane. Very good. Isang layer lamang sila. Now, question, what are these white spots here? Ano kaya to? That is now actually your goblet cells. What's the purpose of your goblet cells? Remember, your mucus sa ating respiratory system, your goblet cells is capable of producing that mucus. And the purpose of that mucus is to trap your foreign bodies. Pwedeng bacteria, pwedeng particles. And anong mag-move ng mucus going out of the body? That's the function now of your cilia. Because remember, is your cilia motile or non-motile? They are highly motile, no? At least nakikita niyo na siya. Again, this is the epithelial tissue. This is the basement membrane. This is now your connective tissue. And napapansin niyo, may mga blood vessel ang ating connective tissue. Kasi nga, dito kukuha ng nutrients ang ating epithelial tissue. Very good. Now, we're done to the different simple layers natin. Now, let's proceed to our stratified layers. You have your stratified squamous epithelium. Again, stratified because you have multiple cell layers. So, this is now the different layers of your skin. You have stratum corneum, granulosum, spinosum, basale. Again, do not be overwhelmed. No need to memorize this one at this point because hindi pa naman kayo nasa integumentary system. I-discuss pa ito when you reach into your integumentary system. Okay? Do not worry. Again, at this point, just take note that your stratified squamous is located in the lining of your esophagus, vagina, mouth, through vocal cords. And again, also in your epidermis of the skin. But take note, the epidermis of the skin contains keratin. Meron siyang keratin. What's the purpose of that keratin? Epidermis of the skin, what's the purpose of that? Ano kaya sa tingin nyo ang purpose niyan? Basically, your keratin is essential for added protection to your skin. Added protection. So that's the purpose of your keratin. So keratin is actually a protein that is necessary to add protection to the epidermis of the skin. But it is non-keratinized to your esophagus, to your vagina, to the mouth, and to your true vocal cord. So you can see here, this portion here, this is now the stratified squamous epithelium. And you can see presence of stratified or flat cells. So, hindi natin masyadong na-view, but these are flat cells, stratified flat cells, or stratified squamous epithelium. Okay? Very good. Again, ito na yun, These are flat cells. Napapansin nyo, these are squamous cells, flat cells. And you can see, there are so many flat cells, no? Ang sobrang dami, makapal kasi ating skin layer for protection. So therefore, this is a stratified squamous epithelium. But take note, your epidermis of the skin, again, ulit-ulit, keratinized. Okay? Very good. Now, for your stratified cuboidal and stratified columnar, iinisa na natin sila. Please take note, stratified cuboidal and stratified columnar, they have a limited distribution in the body. Konting-konti lang sila sa body na memorize lang natin. Again, limited distribution lamang ang cuboidal and columnar. Stratified cuboidal found in the lining of the ducts and sweat glands. That's it. Just remember of that. Ducts and sweat glands. What will be the lining epithelium? Stratified cuboidal epithelium po, Doc. That's it. That's the only part that nakikita natin ang stratified cuboidal. How about the stratified columnar? Lining of your large excretory ducts and some glands in your cavernous urethra. Again, large excretory ducts and some glands in your cavernous urethra. That's gonna be your stratified columnar. So when I asked you in your quiz, where can you locate or can you find your stratified columnar inside your body? Just remember, excretory ducts and your cavernous urethra. That's it. Stratified cuboidal, remember, ducts in your sweat gland. So again, this is an example of a stratified cuboidal epithelium. So parang napapansin nyo, it looks like a columnar, diba? But basically, cube-like, naka-divide yan into two. Parang patingnan natin, parang pahaba naman siya, no? Pero if you have to imagine, tingnan nyo, dalawang cells yan na cube na nag-fuse, kaya nagmumukhang pahaba. But this is a stratified columnar, a cuboidal epithelium, excretory duct. Remember, excretory duct of your sweat gland or your salivary gland, no? Wala nang iba pa. Just remember that. And we have a special type of your epithelium. Ito yung tinatawag natin na transitional epithelium or your urothelium. Let's sulat natin dito, ha? Your urothelium or your urothelium. Now question. Your urothelium or transitional epithelium, saan natin yan makikita? Urothelium, urinary system. Just remember your urinary system. Minor, major calyces, pelvis, ureters, minor and major calyces, pelvis, ureters, and again, bladder, urinary bladder. Okay? urinary bladder. Automatically, pag sinabi kong urinary bladder, what's the lining epithelium of your urinary bladder? Your answer must be transitional epithelium or your urothelium. Okay? Automatically transitional epithelium. Again, this is a specialized type of epithelium. Bakit kaya siya special? Kasi nga, remember your urinary bladder? Ano nangyayari sa urinary bladder? Pag masyadong maraming ihi, ano nangyayari sa urinary bladder? Nagsistretch ang ating urinary bladder. Very good. Now, question. Pag walang ihi when you urinate, anong nangyayari sa ating urinary bladder? Of course, lumiliit siya. Correct? Lumiliit. Lumalaki, lumiliit. So, ano kaya ang nangyayari sa ating epithelium dito? What do you think? Merong nagbabago sa changes, nagbabago ang shape and nagbabago ang shape. Remember, it will be stretch, babalik, stretch. So therefore, your epithelium shape will change. Kaya nga tinawag natin na transitional. Transition, there will be a change. Kaya nga natin, this type of epithelium changes shape and can resemble either stratified squamous epithelium or stratified cuboidal. So, stratified squamous kasi nga, when it becomes stretch, anong nangyayari? Nagiging flat cell sila. Nagiging flat. Correct? Pag hindi puno ang ihi sa ating urinary bladder, bumabalik siya. It looks like now a cuboidal. So, kumbaga, it resemble your squamous epithelium or your cuboidal depending on the status of your bladder. Depending on the status of your ureters, kung nasa-stretch pa siya or hindi. Okay? When it is stretched or when it is contracted. Okay? Take note of this one. When your transitional epithelium is contracted, the surface cells appears dome shape. Okay? Once contracted, mean to say bumalik siya. Bumalik siya sa pagiging maliit, nagiging dome shape siya. As what you can see here. These cells here becomes dome shape. But when it is stretched, the epithelium here, nasa-stretch out yan. Nasa-stretch out, and it resembles now a stratified epithelium. Again, it will change in response to the distension or caused by the fluid accumulation in your urinary bladder. Please remember that. Kaya nga, tinatawag natin sila na transitional epithelium. Okay? Very good. This is just the summary of the things that we discussed a while ago. Again, you have your simple one layer, squamous, cuboidal, columnar. You have your pseudostratified, automatically that is columnar, right? You have a stratified keratinized, stratified non-keratinized, cuboidal, transitional, and columnar. Ito na yun, summary. You can just review this portion here because this will already give you a clue of the things that we discussed. Now, this table is found in your Junquera. Now, I want you to read your Junquera, ha? And these are now the major function. Okay? So, please, this is just a summary. So, kindly go over with this summary. Okay, let's have a practice. Classify the epithelium. Ilang layer? Isa lang ata, Doc. Isang layer lang naman to. Cuboidal, columnar, or flat cells? These are flat cells. So therefore, simple, squamous. So my exam will be like this. I want you to classify. I may not write the correct answer. I feel it's gonna be fill in the blanks, okay? Fill in the blanks, identify the epithelium. Your answer must be simple squamous epithelium or pwede ng simple squamous. Okay? Very good. This one, classify. How many layers? It looks like many layers, dalawang layers, but isang layer lamang yan. So this is one layer because this is bounded by basement membrane. Nasa-separate lamang sila ng basement membrane. So this is one layer, another layer. So this is gonna be simple cuboidal. Okay? Very good. Identify this structure. This is now your nucleus. I might ask you, what is this structure? Nucleus. Very good. Identify this layer. Hala. Patay. I have a clue. Found in the respiratory tract. Automatically, pseudostratified. Respiratory system. Remember, pseudostratified. This is now your pseudostratified because take note, may cells na hindi nakaabot sa apical surface. Tingnan nyo. This cell here, hindi naman to nakaabot sa apical surface, but all of the cells are attached to the basement membrane. What is this one? Special structure. This is now your cilia. Very good. This is now your cilia. This portion here, ano kaya to? Yung nagsisecrete ng goblet cells. Ano to? Yung nagsisecrete ng goblet cells. This gonna be, nagsisecrete ng mucus. This gonna be your goblet cells. Very good. Your goblet cells secretes now your mucus. So therefore, classify the epithelium. What should be your answer? Your answer must be pseudostratified ciliated epithelium. I-add nyo yung word na cilia. Pseudostratified ciliated epithelium or pseudostratified epithelium with cilia or pseudostratified columnar ciliated epithelium. Okay? Pwedeng iba-ibang sagot. Okay? As long as you classify the layer, you add the specialized structure. Or, okay? Ano kaya to? Hala, iba-iba ang shape. May mga shape dito na nasa stretch out na. Merong mga... So, one clue here is that you can see different morphology of the epithelium or the cell. Again, ang clue talaga natin is iba-iba yung ang kanyang iba-iba ang kanyang morphology. Nagta-transition, no? Dito, parang magfa-flat or magsa-stretch out na. Dito, pahaba. Dito, cuboidal. Dito, circular. So again, this is now your transitional epithelium or your urothelium. Again, this is your transitional epithelium or your urothelium. Again, these are your nucleus. Again, magdedepende siya kung nakakontract siya or nasa-stretch out. Pag nakakontract siya, meaning to say, mas bilog-bilog ang cells. So therefore, it looks like a stratified cuboidal. Pero pag nasa-stretch out siya, meaning nafa-flat yung cells. That's why it looks like now your stratified squamous. But basically, this is now your transitional epithelium. Very good. How about this one? Classify the epithelium. How many layers? Tingnan nyo. Ang mga nucleus are na-align lang sila. So, there's only one layer. What is this layer? How many layers? One layer. Simple columnar. Very good. This is now your simple columnar with the presence of, this is, for example, I'll give a clue that this is located in your small intestine with microvilli. Simple columnar with microvilli. Okay, very good. Okay, we're done with your epithelium, specifically your lining epithelium. Do not worry, you will still have another discussion with the glandular epithelium. I guess i-discuss yan ni Dr. Ian, okay? So again, in my quiz sa ating epithelium, I want you to study the structure, i-understand nyo kung paano siya i-classify because I will give you a lot of pictures and I will really ask you to classify the epithelium, okay? Sige. Now, let's proceed with your adipose tissue. Don't get me wrong, your adipose tissue is not part of the epithelial tissue. Your adipose tissue is a connective tissue. But then again, you will have a proper discussion sa ating connective tissue. Sineparate lang namin yung adipose tissue. Okay? Sige, let's start. Your adipose tissue is located throughout the body. It represents 15 to 20% of the body weight. Pag sinabi natin adipose, you are talking about your fat tissue. Fats, no? These are fats. So again, it represents 15 to 20% of the body weight, or it could be more than that in females. Okay? Again, the purpose of your adipose tissue, storage depots for neutral fats. And take note, they are regulator of body's overall energy metabolism. It could also help thermally insulate the body. Diba? Yung mga medyo may maraming fats, mas matagal silang lamigin because, take note, your adipose tissue helps thermally insulate the body. And it fills up spaces between other tissues, help cushion, and keep some organs in place. Please take note that we have two types of your adipose tissue. We have white and brown adipose tissue. And you might be confused. There are still other, when you read other books, you can see meron pang different types ng adipose tissue. But at your level right now, ang pinaka-importante is to differentiate your white versus your brown adipose tissue. Okay? So, in terms of your development of the adipose tissue, saan ba nagmula ang ating adipose tissue? Again, your adipocytes here, again, meron tayong tinatawag na multilocular adipocytes and your unilocular adipocyte. Yung unilocular, that represents now your white adipose tissue. Yung multilocular adipocyte, that represents now your brown adipose tissue. Saan ba nanggaling itong adipose tissue? Remember, your adipocytes differentiates from your embryonic mesenchymal cell. So, nagmula sila sa ating mesenchymal cell. So, remember this one, your mesenchymal cell. Again, your mesenchymal cells will differentiate initially as a pre-adipocytes and then develop further as adipocytes as they accumulate your fat and thus give rise to a mature unilocular or multilocular adipocytes. Okay? Please take note of that. Sige, unahin muna natin yung white adipose tissue. Your white adipose tissue are called unilocular. And one important function, talagang major function ng white adipose tissue, long-term energy storage. Remember that when you lack energy, you cannot have, wala ka ng glucose, wala ka ng other sources of energy, and of course, you can get that directly from the fats because your adipose tissue can serve as a storage of this energy. These fats, your fats can be converted into energy. Okay? But take note, napapansin natin, there are very large, these are your adipocytes. White adipose tissue. These are your adipocytes. Ano kaya itong mga structures na to? Ano kaya itong mga structures na to? These are now your nucleus. Mga nucleus yan sila, okay? These are now your nucleus. Take note, they are located in the center or the periphery? Of course, in the periphery. So again, another clue natin, nucleus is found in the periphery. And saan yung fats dyan, Doc Von? Actually, this structure here is now the storage. This is now the fat or single large droplet of fats. Okay? Again, yung fats dito is nako-combine as one single large droplet, no? Nagiging one large droplet sila. Sobrang laki ng ating fats na de-displace na yung ating mga organelles, specifically your nucleus. Kaya nagiging periphery located ang ating nucleus. Okay? Very good. Again, in terms of the structure, they are spherical, isolated, but are spherical when isolated kung paisa-isa sila. Kung isolated siya, spherical, but they are polyhedral when closely packed. Tingnan nyo, these are closely packed. They looks like now polyhedral. And take note, each cell is very large, between 50 and 150 micrometer in diameter and contains a single, take note ha, they contains a single, tingnan nyo, this is a one single huge droplet of lipid that fills the entire cell. Tingnan nyo, it fills the entire cell. That's why your nucleus is found at the periphery. And it looks like now a signet ring. So ito yung sinatawag natin na signet ring. So that's why your white adipose tissue has a signet ring appearance. So please take note of that. Now, Doc Von, how about your brown adipose tissue? Your brown adipose tissue, 2% to 5% of the newborn body weight located mainly in the back, neck, and shoulder. So maraming brown adipose tissue sa ating newborns. In adults naman, it is found only in scattered areas, especially around the kidneys and in your adrenal glands, aorta, and your mediastinum. Now, the question, bakit natin tinawag na brown adipose tissue? Tinawag natin silang brown adipose tissue or brown fat because of the abundant mitochondria. Maraming mitochondria. And this mitochondria contains cytochrome pigment. Again, this mitochondria contains cytochrome pigment. That's why it looks like a brown fat. Kaya nagiging brown tissue sila. This is now your brown adipose tissue. One brown adipose tissue, one brown adipose tissue, another adipose tissue, another adipose tissue. Ano napapansin nyo? Sinong mas malaki? yung white adipose tissue or your brown adipose tissue? It's gonna be your white adipose tissue. Mas maliliit sila. Okay? Contains many small lipid inclusions and are therefore called multilocular. Napapansin nyo? Maraming mga maliliit dyan. That's now your fats. There are numerous fats pero maliliit. Small lipid inclusions. Kaya tinatawag natin sila na multilocular. Kanina, yung white adipose natin is unilocular kasi nga one large fat lamang sila. Pero sa brown adipose tissue, maliliit pero marami. That's why multilocular, okay? So, what will be the basic function of your brown adipose tissue? It helps mediate this tissue's principal function of heat production. So, basically, thermoregulation, heat production, okay? Again, helps this mediate the tissue principal function of heat production, basically for heat production. So, in terms of its morphology, polygonal, tingnan nyo, iba-ibang shapes, generally smaller than cells of white adipose tissue. The cytoplasm, tingnan nyo, yung cytoplasm dito contains great number of lipid droplets of various sizes and the nuclei are often centrally located. So, one important differentiating factor natin, again, is the location of its nuclei centrally located. Often, but not always, okay? Pwede na naman peripherally, but pwede siyang makita centrally, okay? Adipocytes of brown fat are often closely packed. So, dikit-dikit sila. Napapansin nyo? They are dikit-dikit, okay? And contains many small lipids and are therefore called multilocular, okay? So, as a summary, this is just a very short discussion of your fat. Summary natin, ha? Basically, this is now the nucleus. Nucleus is found at the periphery, dito, centrally located, often. Then, tinatawag silang unilocular because you can see a one large lipid droplet. Dito naman, multilocular kasi nga, you can see many lipid small droplets. Okay. Now, you can have mitochondria in your white adipocyte. But take note, it is numerous in your brown adipocyte. And since mas marami, they can have more cytochrome pigment which makes it brown in color or it appears brown. Okay? So again, that's now the difference between your white adipocyte versus your brown adipocyte. We all know that your white adipose is basically for storing energy. Your brown adipocyte tissue is for expending energy and heat production for non-shivering thermogenesis. So I guess that ends our video lecture. I know medyo mahaba ng konti, but again, it needs a lot of reading. In terms of classifying your epithelium, I know hindi naman sa isang sitting or sa isang pag-aaral, you can already identify, this is simple squamous, this is simple cuboidal. Hindi naman siya ganun kadali at your level right now. That's why, in your laboratory, I want you to practice. Identify nyo. Hala, isang layer lang ba to? Dalawang layer. That's the part now of the laboratory for you to be trained na you can identify the different epithelium. Okay? So, I want you to practice that in your laboratory para mas madali na lang sa inyong part. Okay? Sige. If you have any questions in my discussion, please do not hesitate me to PM me on my Telegram. We will have our quiz this coming Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Okay, thank you everyone and God bless.